And we're back. We're live for the second one of the top or the Pro Rugby Show, being exclusively a rugby show. I've just decided I'm gonna wear the Springbok jersey until there's a new world champ crowned, or when the Boks go back to back again. Even though South Africa lost on the weekend, I'm just gonna keep wearing the Springbok jersey. I'm joined, and if you haven't seen, we've got a new co-host, Mike Prov. How do I pronounce this? It's Provis?
Mate, it's Provis. You can call me whatever you want, mate. You can call me Prov. Prov will do. That's what everyone calls me. So
can I call you sexy?
You can call me whatever you want, mate. I don't get that anymore. So yeah, keep it coming.
Well, I'm just gonna get. I don't know if you can hear that. I'm clapping hands now. That's just my soundboard. Congrats, mate. Thanks for joining. We've been speaking about it for a while. Both of us just love to talk rugby, and what a time to start it, I guess.
Mate, I'm excited, mate, to be honest. Like I was explaining to you the other day, I've sort of, I've been away from rugby for a long time in terms of playing, but obviously my coaching and things, I've been in and around it and tried to keep on top of it. It's quite hard as well when, there's rugby league as well, but mate, I'm still heavily involved and I love the rugby. I love any sport. So I'm keen to get into this.
What did you think of that? We're gonna dive straight into it. If you guys wanted to hear a bit more about Mike's background, we have done a podcast together. So if you type in Mike Provis, it'll pop up. Go listen to that. He's got been playing rugby since before he could walk. All that Cornish Pirates, played for England or did lots of trials with the England age groups, and has come over. We kind of got almost similar stories. He's come over to Australia and played a bit of rugby here as well, and then has set up camp in Newcastle. So if you want to hear more about that, type in Mike Provis Down Pro podcast. It'll pop up. But we're gonna dive straight into the rugby.
Let's do it.
Blacks 35, Springboks 20. I'd said in my previous podcast that the All Blacks were the standard. And it doesn't matter if France are on top in the IRB rankings or Ireland or above them. All Blacks for me will always be the standard. And I don't know how long it's going to take for that to change. What do you think? Going off the back of what we just saw this weekend, I think that's a pretty fair statement.
Mate, it's a fair statement. And to be honest with you, I think it's been a fair statement for a number of years. Like you said, forget the IRB rankings, forget all that. In terms of consistency, strength and depth, all that sort of thing, like just individual players, the All Blacks just seem just to turn up when they have to. And like every year you go, okay, one of their key players is retired or they've moved on, they've retired from international rugby, and bang, they bring someone else in. And it's not like they get used to the All Blacks. They're just built to be in that All Black squad. And for me, like I can remember from when I was a kid, mate, like, England rugby were great. But when the All Blacks came to the UK and we had the opportunity to go and watch them, that's what we did. And even now, like all these years on, the All Blacks they just dominate. And when they have that little slump, they recognize it, and before you know it, they're soaring again. And it's amazing to watch, to be honest. It really is. It's crazy.
They're so good at turning over players as well. Like you mentioned there as well, when there's someone falls out, the next person is ready to jump in again. And it's just that conveyor belt of players, and they blood them so early as well, which helps. There's no kind of getting used to the next level. Those guys have been doing it for 4 or 5 years already. So when the next person comes in, it's just boom. They know exactly what needs to be done, and it's off we go. And it shows. They debuting that prop that come on, Tommy Williams, come on straight into scrums. He's come off the back of Crusade, like that convey or that academy at Crusaders, and come straight into the. I feel like that's like the perfect, the All Blacks selectors probably sitting like, oh, we see this guy's a gun. Let's put him at the Crusaders because we know he's going to do the things are going to happen there for him, and he's going to come in straight away and just do what he has to.
I've got to say, I was lucky enough to tour New Zealand with British colleges a number of years ago now. But one thing that really struck me about being in New Zealand and the culture is rugby is everything to Kiwis. And even driving to games and driving around the streets and walking around the streets, like you see a kid, they've got a ball in their hand, they've got shoes on, shoes off, it doesn't matter. They are just brought up with rugby. Like again, I refer back to the UK, there's soccer, You know, there's a lot of sports that the UK are pretty good at, and you sort of you through your schooling life you play all those sports. I think for the All Blacks, they just that's all they know. And I'll just bounce off what you just said. When England blood a new player, it's like, you know, at club level he's been great. We'll give him a shot at international rugby. Yeah, 9 times out of 10 they play well. An All Black gets blooded, they go debut, they just slot straight in.
Right
They
in,
don't
yeah.
just play well. They just it's like no one ever left. And it again, I put that down to the culture, the rugby, you know, from when they're, you know, when they learn to walk all the way up to being an All Black. It's all they ever know. Like I know cricket's quite big in New Zealand. I'm not too sure about other sports, but like it just really hit me hard when I went there that it's purely rugby and kids just live and breathe the sport, man. It doesn't surprise me when they're so dominant.
So
When I
dominant.
see what I saw, yeah.
I also think though that the different franchises, so your Highlanders, your Hurricanes, Crusaders, they all have a common goal of making the All Blacks better.
Mm,
So they're all on kind of the same page. It's like, yes, we obviously want to beat, if I'm the Highlanders, I obviously want to beat the Hurricanes, but we all kind of, it's almost like a little Illuminati that are like, we're all working together for the
yeah,
greater good of making the All Blacks better. And
yeah, 100%.
it works out. So watching the Springboks All Blacks game, obviously massive anticipation. The Springboks coming off smoking Wallabies by 40 points. There might have been a bit of too much confidence going into the game. Do you think the All Blacks Springbocked the Springboks? I looked at the
Mate,
kicking stats. 27
mm,
kicks to All Blacks, only 14 to Springboks. They were kicking. Aaron Smith did a box kick in the attacking 22.
yeah,
There
I,
was a lot of contestable kicks. There was never kicks
yeah,
to clear, really. It was more just contestable with Will Jordan coming through to take the ball out of, or at least putting pressure on South Africa's back three.
yeah.
It feels like that's the first thing I thought of. The Springboks are being out Springbok.
Yeah, talking to someone from South Africa, like I've I've watched a lot of rugby over the years. I cannot remember a more dominant start in an international game of rugby, and I'll credit both teams here. We're not talking about, you know, and all full respect to teams like Georgia, but like Georgia against the All Blacks. We're talking South Africa. We're talking the Springboks against the All Blacks, like rivalry. Like they know when they come, you know, head to head, it's gonna be on. They dominated that first 20 minutes. I was watching the game. I had the kids there. I was sort of like trying to entertain them and watch it. And I was like, girls, like trying to get them to watch it. I was like, look at this.
Look how good
And
this is.
yeah, it was. And I've been like that for years. Like I've watching the All Blacks playing, and it's sort of gone past the All Blacks into like South Africa, into England. Like the game's changed a lot since I played, but I can't remember a more dominant 20 minutes. And the kicking game, going back to what you just said about the kicking game, you know, they've got the likes of, you know, Aaron Smith at 9. They've got Bowden Barrett. They've got Geordie Barrett. They've got all these players. I mean, we're not even talking Damien McKenzie. He wasn't even playing. But again, it goes back to their strength and depth. And people can come in and they just know their roles. They know their jobs. And I think personally, you know, as a kicker myself back in the day, a good kicking game in any team, I don't care what anyone says. I had this conversation at a training session last week. A good kicking game will wear teams down, and it will wear them down. And when their confidence gets shot, when they when they drop a few high balls, or they get, you know, they're contesting and they're losing it, their confidence goes. And if you just keep doing it, you're going to get results. And I think it was a great tactic by All Blacks. Again, probably, I mean, I didn't know those stats until you just said, but that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And then all those guys you mentioned there, so they had Aaron Smith with box kicks, obviously one of the best in the world at it. So all of them were on point, only 20 or 30 meters out. And so a lot of ample time for their wingers to put pressure on South Africa's wingers going up.
Yeah.
Richie Mwanga's up and unders were all also only 20, 30 meters, perfect on point. There was then out the back door. So Richie Mwanga playing out the back to Bowden Barrett, to which normally would be a far exit on the right foot, but he was also up and under. So an extra only 40 meters or so. And those guys were contesting. And then, like you mentioned, Geordie Barrett was at center. They were using him to crash a lot. But then he was doing little chips over the top as well. They've got that many options. When you've got your 9, your 10, your 12, and then your fullback that are all renowned kickers of the ball out of hand, especially, it makes it so hard to defend.
Mate, I mean, I wouldn't know where to start as a coach, and I've got a lot of respect for coaches. But you look at that back line, you know, Mo'unga, Smith, you know, you've got Barrett, Ioane, Will Jordan. Like, let's touch on Will Jordan. The guy's a freak, man. Like, I remember when he came onto the scene, and yes, he was good, but this guy can play rugby, and I think the more confidence I can see it in Will Jordan, the more confidence he gets, the more dangerous he's going to get, and that for me is scary. It really is scary. But those options that you just said, every single option, whether it is a crash ball, whether it is a kick, you know, those players, when you look around world rugby, they're the best at it already. And, you know, it's one thing being able to kick, but you'll know yourself, mate. One thing being able to kick, but be able to kick accurately in a high pressure game in international rugby. Yes, they've been there for a while, but one thing that's really struck me about the All Blacks is for me, what their team on the weekend, Mo'unga at 10, keep him there. For me, I think Mo'unga's been probably the best 10 in the world for the last 2 or 3 years. Keep him there. Keep Barrett at fullback. You know, with the strength and depth that we talked about, there's going to be competition for spots. You know, Damien McKenzie, he's going to have to fight for his spot, you know, and then keep Geordie Barrett in the center. He's a big unit. He's going to be dominant. He can kick, he can run. Like, it's just a scary outfit. But I think if they can stick to their positions now, I think, you know, Smith, I don't know how long he's got left, but Smith, Mo'unga, Barrett, Bowden Barrett at fullback, mate, I don't think you can go past that. And again, as a coach, what do? You've got all these world-class players and you've got to pick a starting 15. It would be super hard.
Yeah. I think and I mentioned it in the previous podcast, with how dominant Geordie Barrett was at 12, but just his skill set as well. As like, he's a big body, he's over 100 kilos. So he's easily doing what a 12 should do firstly, which is hitting the gain line. He's tackling, everyone knows. His defense is, no one's running through his channel.
No.
Then he's got a sleight of hand, his skills, like, so a flat ball, he's got out the back pass, and then right at the line, he's got a little chip as well. Put all of that together, he's also got a little break through the line and offload. I mean, it's almost like Sonny Bill reincarnated, but with a kicking game.
You took the words out of my mouth, mate. Yeah. He reminds me of a Sonny Bill like player, very different at the same time, but the skill set for I think he's 6'5", but you know, he can goal kick, he can kick out of hand, he can run, he can break the line, he can off. Like, it's just, in fact, he's probably got more of a skill set than Sonny Bill when you take into account his kicking ability as well. It's like I said, not only him, but everyone else in that back line. It's a scary, scary back line, man.
A lot of the times I watch, so obviously everyone watches rugby and then they're watching where the ball is, because that's where the action is. And whenever Will Jordan plays, I try and, obviously you can only watch what the camera is showing on the field, but I try and watch what he does off the ball. And it was either the semi-final of the Super Rugby or the final. And they were exhausted, Crusaders exhausted to the right. And they had about 20 meters there. And you could see Will Jordan, obviously someone has now picked this apart afterwards. So I saw it on Twitter or YouTube afterwards, where this rugby analyst dude picked this apart and shown. You can see Will Jordan is going right with the team and sees, okay, there's no options here. Everyone there who's on that side that's seen there's no options, like, okay, the ball's going that way. He then runs the whole way around to be the second back door. So, you know, they do all the... Yep. So to him to be the second one, he then there makes a breakthrough, draws last man, and I think Leicester Fainga'anuku scores in the corner for the Crusaders. But that's him noticing there's nothing on in front of him, seeing there's an opportunity to be not to butt in there at first receiver, but to come like third, fourth receiver, to be that second out the back play. Oh, man. And just his pace as well is just scary.
Yeah. To add to that, like, again, all the respect in the world to wingers, but there's, you know, wingers traditionally stay on your wing, wait for the ball to come to you, finish. The guy, and I've seen this happen before, not in that game. I've seen Will Jordan do this. He's just an all-round player. I dead set think if you put him in the center, the guy could do a job. Like, he's, you know, he's got the vision of a 10. He's got the vision of a fullback, but he's on the wing and he creates opportunities, and he's so powerful. He's so skillful. He can finish. Again, I'm going back to it. He's just an all-round player. And as an opposition coach or player, what do we do with this player? Like, how do we shut him down? Because you shut him down, he's got ways to get around you. You give him space, he's going to punish you. I don't know. As a coach, it would be so painful.
like you say, because he's not just staying on his wing. So you could put 3 or 4 defenders there, but he'll pop up on the right wing if he's a left winger, or on the left wing if he's a right winger. He'll pop up between the 9 and the 10. And that's, I mean,
It
that's
just
like you said,
works,
that's
man.
what we are. Yeah, it's great. It's great. And
Just
there's
works
just
hard.
this new kind of generation of player that's coming through, and again through the Crusaders setup. It's just, I think a big go for them kind of staying on the kicking route was Richie Mwanga off the tee. Beautiful 6 out of 7. I think he would have loved to kick it. There was that last kick that he missed. And then you look at South Africa. South Africa had 3 kickers in the game. Three kickers to post. There was, I think Cheslin Colby was supposed to start kicking. Then Faf de Klerk was kicking. I think someone else had a kick as well. Like, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. As a 10, we've both played 10 all our lives. And I was never good at the start of my career, good at kicking to post. But I quickly learned that, like passing for a 9, kicking to posts for a 10 should be your job. If you should be picked if you can't kick to post as a 10. That's like saying picking a 10, but he's not going to talk on the field. No, if you're a 10, you should put your hand up and be like, I'm kicking to posts. Unless you've got a world-class kicker at the fullback. You know what I'm saying?
So that's what I was about to say. I was like, look, as a 10 growing up, we're similar age, I'm a bit older than you, but a 10, 9 times out of 10 was a goal kicker. And it just became part of your job in that position. Again, I was saying to you the other day, it's like a hooker goes out and practices his throwing. A 9 practices his passing. For me as a 10, your job was to goal kick. And nowadays the game's changed a bit. If you've got a fullback, or you look at the likes of England, they've got a few different options there where they're kicking. If you've got a world-class kicker who's playing in a different position, fine. But going back to what you just said about the 3 different options in the game, we're talking international rugby here, and we're swapping and changing between 3 different kickers. I do a lot of, as you know, mate, a lot of kicking coaching, and I had this conversation last week, and someone said, what happens if you miss your first 2 or 3? Do I give it to somebody else? I was like, mate, if you're the goal kicker in your team, back yourself. You know how to kick. Everyone's going to have bad days. We know that. But for me to just, I don't want it. And look, if you're having a nightmare and you're not feeling it, by all means do it. But if you're playing at this level and you're going, I'll give it to him. I'll give it. Like, come on, man. Like, this is international rugby. I feel like you need to back yourself. I was watching a game on the weekend. I went to watch the Knights play, and their goal kicker, all his kicks from the sideline, he missed the first 4. And I was like, this is a prime example. You're playing in front of 20,000 people. Everyone's just not booing, but moaning when you miss. Like, now what? You've missed 4. You've got your 5th kick from the sideline. Guess what? He got it. You've got to back yourself. And for me, Richie Mwanga, technically sound, great goal kicker, but to be swapping 3 goal kickers, I did notice that. For me, that's not a thing in international rugby, man. You need to have an out-and-out goal kicker who is reliable, who, when that penalty goes or there's a try scored, this is mine. I can get this, because you've got the self-belief.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something. And yes, everyone goes back to Andre Pollard being injured and stuff like that, but he might not be fit for the World Cup. And it's like, there has to be someone else there.
Mate, what if Pollard gets a serious? What if Pollard breaks his leg and he can't play in a World Cup? Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to have those backup options of, I've coached players before, and I've gone, how often do you kick? And I'm talking players that are full-time job as players. How often do you practice? I don't really, because he's in front of me as a kicker. But what if he gets injured? Now you're playing in front of 20,000 people, and you're not going to practice because he's in front of you. I was like, mate, this is your job. Practice. And if you get given that responsibility, you can back yourself, and you've got full confidence that in any situation you're going to hit them. You're going to hit them well. So yeah, I think that it just needs to be, I don't know. I think for a lot of players, having a bad day with the boot can also, knock your confidence in other parts of your game, maybe, if it's early on. But I definitely think, again, we go back to the All Blacks, Richie Mwanga, great goal kicker. You wouldn't change him for the world. South Africa, just get your goal kicker, get him practicing, get out there and just dominate and just back yourself in the game. Whether you miss the first 4, just keep going, keep plugging away.
I've always felt that too, is like, if my kicking isn't going good, then I'm like, I'm going to back myself running now the ball.
Yeah.
It's like, you gotta balance it out somehow. And if your running isn't going good, like, I better be kicking them over.
Better put a hit on someone or something.
Some days it is just a shit day at the office, but it also takes 100%. That experience then to realize, okay, I'm having a shit day. Let's take it back to basics. Let's calm down.
Yeah.
Go through your processes, and fuck, if you're still missing it, then what? Put your hands up and let's get on with it. It's just
100%.
just one of those days. I do want to jump onto the Springboks because they've come off. I mean, they absolutely pumped the Wallabies in South Africa. They had a split squad, so half the guys were down in Auckland already. The other half came to join them, and I do think there was a little bit of quiet overconfidence and not really realize. I wouldn't say not realizing because I don't know, but it seemed like how, or maybe it's just a credit to the All Blacks. They come out fucking. That is the highest intensity bit of rugby I've seen.
Yeah,
those first 20 minutes I've ever seen, I've ever watched. So
maybe
it's just a credit to the All Blacks.
So, yeah, New Zealand. Yeah, I think looking back at it, I think I would hope that South Africa didn't have too much confidence being, our next game is the All Blacks. I think personally, South Africa ran into
brick wall.
an All Blacks team that just clicked, and they click all the time, but they click big time. Let's not forget, what was the score after 60 minutes? I don't think there was too much in it. Maybe 12 points or something. To have that dominant start, and full credit to South Africa. I mean, to be up against the wall that early in a game, and I'll never know the pressures of international rugby, but if I was in that Springbok squad and I was like, okay, we're not only playing the All Blacks, we've just been annihilated in the first 20 minutes. How do we come? It's hard enough to come back from any score against the All Blacks. Now, how do we do it? And full credit to South Africa. They stuck to their game plan, not all the time, but stuck to it, and they got close. And the All Blacks didn't run away with it. I think South Africa can take a lot of confidence out of, up to 60, 70 minutes. Like they really did claw it back, and that's not easy for any international team to do.
Not at all. And I think big credit to them. They call them the bomb squad, the reserves that came on. When those guys come on early, I think the first sub that was made was like 2 minutes into the second half. I mean, full front row change, or I think Malcolm Marx comes on. He's a massive, massive input there. I think they scored within 10 minutes, a driving maul. I think Peter Steph Toy needs to start. He's a line out option. He's a massive body, and his work rate is through the roof. I said it again, referencing back to my podcast I did last week. Yeah. What's really excited me for the Springboks is, yes, we've always known the Springboks to be in a bigger pack of forwards or bigger bodies, but how mobile they are now is just. I mean, you got Steven Kitsoff making turnovers 50 minutes into the game. He's a front rower making turnovers. Peter Steph Toy is like 2 meters tall and also making heaps of tackles, taking the ball on, just interfering at the ruck time.
Yeah, I think you look at the again, you just hit the nail on the head. Growing up, mate, I remember there was a game at Twickenham and South Africa came to England and played at Twickenham. Mate, you guys beat us up. And I mean, with all the respect in the world, you beat us up. Fairly questionable, but they got away with it. And I remember watching that game when I was young, man, and half the players from England had bandages around their head. South Africans, mate, and I've played against and played with South Africans, and for me, they're just built different. You look at the likes of Malcolm Marx coming off the bench. That guy's a freak, man. There's a lot of players that I look at playing right now and I go, who's one player I wouldn't want to try and tackle? Malcolm Marx is up there. The guy scores tries. He's powerful. His throwing, everything is and I think maybe that had a bit to do with, again, I would hope it wasn't overconfidence because you're playing the All Blacks, but it could have been. But I think the physical dominance and how mobile these big guys are now for South Africa is, they've gone away from that big, tough body who just carries the ball. Like, these guys are mobile, they can step, they can offload. And, I can't imagine now, but guys are getting bigger and stronger by the day when I look at these young kids coming up through and I'm thinking, imagine as a forward trying to keep up with these guys for 80 minutes. I think maybe South Africa wore that New Zealand pack down a little bit, just from what you said, those attributes of just getting in there and doing that dogged work that, a lot of players don't want to do. And I think they really disrupted the All Blacks pack. And I think that's how they probably got into the game from that really dominant start from the All Blacks.
I definitely think it was just one of All Blacks were playing chess and South Africa were potentially just playing checkers. How kind of man, what's the All Blacks coach? I know it's Razor next year. I've totally I've just blanked on him. But how they picked apart the South Africans in that game. It's almost like they were playing two different games. But like you said, there was a section there where South Africa were dominant, where they were coming back. Yeah. And to do that in New Zealand is not everyone can do that. So there is lots of things.
Do you know why they played at Mount Smart and not at Eden Park?
It's the Women's FIFA World Cup in New Zealand and Australia. They were playing. So Eden Park was all the lines and that were all sprayed for soccer, for football. So so that's why they moved it there.
Well, the reason I say that is I watched the British and Irish Lions when I was actually touring New Zealand when they toured. And I watched the All Blacks at Eden Park. Again, mate, I think Eden Park take them to another level, the All Blacks as well. So, look, no disrespect to South Africa. I reckon chuck that game at Eden Park with double the crowd. It could have been anything. But like I said, the All Blacks showed heart when I reckon a lot of international teams, including England, being quite young, would have gone, holy shit, we're getting dominated here. This could be 40 or 50 very quickly. So I got a lot of respect for South Africa in that game for sure.
It'll be so now it's a break. There's a bye, and then they play again the following week. It'll be interesting to see the South Africa Argentina. That'll be whoever comes second, I guess. In the no, it's because I don't see if there's a bit of talk about Eddie Jones. Oh, we'll get onto the Wallabies game. Onto that. I loved Willie Leroux coming in at 10. I think he said at school he played 10 and a bit of fullback, but mainly 10. There's a lot of injuries and that are going around at the 10. Obviously, Andre Pollard is still the number 1 10 for the Springboks. But man, I think you can throw Willie in there. His option taking is like, it's just, he's thinking that next step ahead. And that's what you want as a 10. Where I saw what worked really well was when he was coming in, was not hitting the first 10, was skipping and hitting almost the third player. And getting just past the third defender, getting over that vantage line there, and just these, and it just seems natural. There, he's running onto the ball, straightening, throwing that flat ball. A lot of talk all the time, like we've said. Me and you've spoken a lot about you seeing natural kickers of the ball. Like you can also see a natural runner at 10 that can play. He's not even thinking, and he's throwing those skip passes that are hitting guys right in the chest and making the right decisions. I definitely think he's an option.
Mate, he's definitely an option at 10. And let's not forget, the guy's got some experience behind him as well. Like, the guy has been there, he's done it, he's played against, I don't know how old he is. I'm just getting up here. He's 33.
He's 3 years older than me. Yeah.
So he's been around for, I'm not sure how old he was when he
85 tests or 86 or 7 tests for the Springboks.
The guy's played against some older players, and he's adapted to the new age and the new way of playing. And mate, he's one player. I remember watching him play. I'm pretty sure he played for Wasps. He was fullback at Wasps. But and the guy's just, again, I love Willie Leroux and Pollard as well. They're very, I feel, natural on the ball. They run naturally, and it's just there are a couple players that are just a pleasure to watch. Pollard goal kicking, mate, is like a poetry in motion. I absolutely love it. Willie Leroux at fullback when he gets the ball in space. At 10, mate, he did was he outstanding? No, but you wouldn't know that he was out of position. The guy is just, again, through experience and being on that international stage, I think a player like Willie Leroux, wherever he's going to play, whether it be 10, 15, he's going to bring out probably the best of the players around him as well. And I think he did a great job, mate. He didn't look out of place at all. He was great.
I think they'll look to that. So, I mean, he's so good at fullback as well. They just... looking after those high balls, that must be a nightmare, knowing there's 5 guys running at you and you have to jump up in the air, because if you don't, one of their wingers is going to jump, steal it, and go score a try.
Yeah, or you're going to catch it and get absolutely thumped as well. Like, they've got some balls back there now, man. Again, we go back to players getting bigger and faster. These young kids at 21, 22, 23, We're talking 6'3", like a centre, 6'3", 110 kilos, can run
Ridiculous.
100 meters in 10 seconds. Like, mate,
Yeah,
it's scary. I'm
crazy.
glad I've retired, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
I do want to give, I mean, we're speaking a lot about backline players, but I mean, Shannon Frizzell,
Oh, mate,
absolute freak. And I
mate.
think he got man of the match, if I'm not mistaken. But
The,
yeah,
is he? I think I heard. I'm pretty sure he is. Is he a brother of Tyson Frizzell?
yes. All
He
their
is.
cousins, or yeah.
Yeah, I remember when he came on. I remember when he came on the scene. I think it was his debut, and even his debut, he played well. But again, I use freak a lot, but this guy's a freak. This guy can do a lot, and he's one for me who just looks dominant on the field. Like, yeah, he's dominant in his actions, but just to look at him as well physically, just dominant. And when I think moving forward now and how dominant he has been, like a lot of teams are going to look at him and go, okay, again, another All Black. How do we shut this guy down?
Yeah.
We've got Will Jordan on the wing. We've got Bowden Barrett. We've got Richie Mo'unga. We've got Geordie Barrett. But now all of a sudden we've got these forwards that are just next level, man. Again, we'll probably touch on them, but Takiaho, all these players that are like just so mobile for big guys now. It's Cody Taylor, mate. He can run like a
Yeah.
center. Like,
Yeah.
it's
And these
freaking.
guys have been playing so well. We haven't even mentioned Ardi Sevilla, who's been one of the best players in the world for the past 5 years. And
Yeah,
it's almost like he's taken up that donkey work role where you've
yeah,
got a guy like Shannon Frizzell that's doing the flashy stuff on the outside, like on those 15 meters on each side. And you've got
yeah.
Ardi Sevilla still just being absolute menace at the rock.
Just grinding in
Yeah,
there. Like,
he just loves that, doesn't he?
yeah, he
There was a
does.
little tussle between him and Eben Etzebeth. Like Eben picked him
Great.
up and then
How
he
good.
picked him up as well. It's
I've
like,
seen it and just flung him behind him. I saw that. That was hectic. Yeah.
yeah.
But no, you're right, mate. Those forwards, or not even Frizzell, but just those forwards in general. I've just touched on Cody Taylor. Like, they're just, the game has changed so much for me now watching it, and I know I keep joking about it. I'm almost glad that I'm not playing against the caliber of these players because, as quite a slight guy myself, I'm not very big. Like, I just, Richie Mo'unga punches well above his weight, but you've got to be made for this stuff. Again, Takiaho, when he comes on, like, I look at them running. I'm thinking, where would you even? People, yeah, go low. When you play rugby, go low and bring the big guys down. How can you, man? You can't go
Yeah,
high. You can't go low.
yeah,
He's only
yeah,
5 foot. Like, but
yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think Villy got a brunt of that when Frizzell scored. I don't know. He tried to go. He was almost like that when John Olomu got ankle tapped and he was like tripping towards my
Yeah,
cat. Yeah,
yeah.
something like that happened. And Frizzell just run over the top of Villy. You stand no chance, but you just have to
No,
try and do something. And
hope.
he's scoring from 5 meters out.
But
Uh,
like, we're talking about these players, but we haven't even touched on someone like Caleb Clark. Like, where's his position in this team right now?
yeah,
Like,
I don't.
again, go on.
Yeah, I don't think he was on the bench the weekend.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
he has the skill set. I
But
like think of
this,
Will
yeah,
Jordan. The skill set is coming out of his ears, and
yeah.
I think Caleb Clark though does fill that role of being a more stronger, powerful winger.
Mm,
Where I think the All Blacks like to go for that. Where the Springboks are also doing that, having a faster winger in Cheslin Colby, and then
yeah,
Mapimpi being more bigger winger.
yeah.
Maybe they
I
go for something
feel
like that.
I feel for Caleb Clark because it's, even 12 months ago, the guy was like the biggest name.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden,
yeah.
bang, again, someone comes through, they blood another player, and he's just as good, if not better. And it's like, you are this big, and now all of a sudden, someone's overtaking you. And again, I mean, the competition at training in the All Blacks squad must be crazy,
Think the
man. It
wingers
must be.
quickly. So Will Jordan, Caleb Clark, Mark Talia,
Mm,
Lester Fanganoku.
yep.
I mean,
I'm
you
glad you
haven't even
said that.
mentioned Sever Reese. There's like,
Yeah.
you can,
Seven Reese has been dominant for years as well
yeah,
now, and he's still. It's
yeah.
again strength and depth. Like, then they've got no issue, and it's scary. It really is scary because look, they've been beaten. They've been beaten. Like, I refer back to when England beat them in the World Cup. They're beatable, but you've got to catch them on a not so good day,
On the
mate. Like,
day, that's it. Yep.
and it's very, very rare. And
Yep.
as an English, as someone who's English, running into them in the World Cup semi-final on their bad day, happy days. But
Yeah.
when's that going to happen again? Like, that might not happen for another 5-6 years.
Yeah. Because I don't like to say it, but I mean, South Africa won the last World Cup, but we lost to New Zealand in the group stage.
Yeah,
We just
yeah.
luckily had to play England after England beat them for us. Thanks, England. Yeah, so that was obviously just dominant from New Zealand,
Mm.
35-20 there. I'm going to go with, just because we are kickers, I'm going to go with Richie Mo'unga as man of the match there. I think he
Yeah.
fucking always, I feel like when a team is doing well, the 10 is just running the cutter, and he was doing
To.
that.
They have to be playing well. I agree, mate. Will Jordan's got to be close, but I think the all-round game of Richie Mo'unga, even his defensive game for being not such a big guy, but his speed is next level. His kicking game is next level off the tee and out of hand. His passing game, his decision making, his vision. He's an all-round player.
Right. We will jump straight into the Wallabies Argentina game. Obviously, a very disappointing game for the Wallabies. So losing 31-34. It's almost like when you do all the hard yards during the week to chat up a girl, okay? Because on the weekend you're
This will be
going to the
good.
same party and you're thinking, maybe we can hook up. I'm gonna do the hard yards this week. I'm gonna text her every night. I'm gonna do all that. I'm gonna get to the party. We're gonna have a good time, and I'm hopefully gonna hook up with this girl. And then you get to the party and you drink too much and you start vomiting everywhere. That's what I feel like happened
Oh
with the
my
Wallabies
gosh.
this weekend.
I love that.
There's,
That's so good.
there's so much or so much talk. Everything went into the Wallabies beating Argentina this week. They did it in the game. There was like 2 minutes left and they were ahead.
Yeah.
Marky
Yeah.
Mark, the winger, scores the intercept. It was going to be his night. And they royally fucked it. Like most guys have done, chatting up the girl all week, and you get to the party and you get too drunk and you vomit everywhere.
The pressure has got to you. The pressure has got to you, and yeah, mate. That's probably the best way you could have put it, man. Like I didn't expect you to say that, but hit the nail on the head, mate. I'm not gonna lie. I was extremely disappointed with Australia. What went wrong? I don't know. There were glimpses of what we expect from the Wallabies. Look, take nothing away from Argentina. I think the journey Argentina have been on over the last, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years has been amazing. And full credit to them. They're a tough side. I think discipline, from what I saw, discipline really let the Wallabies down. And I know personally from watching international rugby, Argentina are renowned for having poor discipline. Well, they have been in the past. And I think the Wallabies took that little thing over. Like their discipline let them down against a team that are renowned for being poor at that sort of thing. So I just think it was, again, you talked about South Africa going into it maybe a little bit confident. I know the Wallabies got slapped the week before, but I don't know what, I can't even put my finger on it. The only thing I can think is, poor discipline played into Argentina's hands. And like you said, they did have it. But personally, mate, and I'm not just saying this, but Argentina deserved to win that game in my eyes. I don't think honestly, I don't think it will do Australia any harm by losing that. I think it'll be a huge wake up call for the Wallabies. I'm English. England, Australia, we have a big rivalry, but I want to see the Wallabies do well. Like I think that maybe they did go into this game a little bit confident. When you suffer such a heavy loss, you're training all week going, right, this is it. This can't happen again. We can't lose. We have to win. And then you lose, and losing that way, the poor discipline, the poor discipline cost them that game.
Yeah.
They had it won, the intercept.
Yeah.
And then they lost their temper, lost their temperament. And Argentina did what they're good at, mate. And you can't let a good team like Argentina now have those opportunities.
I said last week again that I think Argentina not being part of the Super Rugby, like Jaguares, has definitely negatively impacted the international side, because 80% of the guys that are playing for Argentina play together for the Jags.
Yeah.
Now that they're all spread out, against the All Blacks, it looked like they lacked a lot of cohesion, especially on attack.
Yeah.
And at the start of this game, I thought they say, "Oh well, nothing has changed. They're looking the same." But then you could look at, then it's like those guys that have been there and done it for ages. That Pablo Matera, those guys leading by example. And when those guys play with passion, And it shows like all the supporters they had there as well. When they get going, those guys are singing their sing songs.
Yeah.
And problem with I think in the first 20 minutes, he made he stole at the ruck or he
Mm.
obstructed something at the ruck. And they showed a slow-mo of him and he stood up and he was just like, man,
Yeah.
that's like 300 shit. He's a
Yeah.
scary good
Pumped.
leader for them. Just pumped. I think his energy and passion, it's like having an extra 3 players on the field when he's
He,
pumped like that.
he, yeah. And he wasn't like, he's not even captain. It was Montoya's captain, I think, in that
Mm.
game. But anyway, he
Yep.
leads by example. He's been there, he's done it.
Yep.
You know, I've seen that passion in him before, and you know, it can boil over at times. That's why we go back to that discipline. But the guy knows, and I think through experiences and both negative and positive over the last few years, he knows how to channel that passion now. And you know, I can only put myself in the shoes of some of those players. You see a player in a game, an international game, show that much passion, not only in the dressing rooms before the game, but during the game. Like, that would pump anyone. And like you said, with the support that they had as well, mate, like it just, and they know how to support those sort of
Yeah.
those nations. And it would have been incredible to go and watch. It would have been incredible to see. And I think this will do Argentina the world of good. And I wish them all the best, because they haven't always been the strongest nation, but to see them beating teams like this, and again, they didn't fluke it. They deserve to win this game.
Yep.
I think it's amazing, mate. And you know, Australia need to pull their finger out now. They need to start winning.
It also doesn't help that Eddie just goes back into the media and tells the All Blacks to look out.
Mate,
He told
I've
all. So I have
yeah.
a thing. This is my conspiracy theory with
Oh my
with
gosh,
Eddie and the
mate.
media. The media or the higher ups at rugby, Australia Rugby, have told Eddie that like part of his whole contract thing is that he has to be outspoken and that like he normally is in the media, because it's giving
Yeah,
Australian rugby a lot of attention that they haven't had for how long. Like the rugby side isn't bringing it. Okay, let's Eddie bring the attention, because if you think of nowadays, hey, everything goes around social media, the
hmm,
news, clicks, all of that.
yeah,
NRL is leading that, because NRL is a fucking drama on its own. It's a drama show on it's a bold and beautiful. Every week
yeah,
there's something happening. They're always the
yeah,
front page of the news. Whether it's good or bad, it's always publicity. They're always there.
yeah.
Rugby Australia hasn't had that. So now Eddie is their guy. The rugby isn't so Eddie's chat is here, which is up high. The rugby's
Yeah,
still not getting there. And
yeah.
I really hope it does, because he talks a big game. He's just told All Blacks, who pumped
I
South
know,
Africa by 35-20, that they need to look out. And Australia haven't
mate.
won a game yet.
Let me take you back to where Eddie Jones was in charge of England. He got rid of coach and staff there that probably shouldn't have been disposed of at that current time. He, for some reason, he's got this aura about him. He's a very dominant figure. He likes to create, you could call it unnecessary drama. What he thinks goes. I feel very tunnel visioned in his way of thinking, his way of looking at things. And if anyone contributes in any other way that's outside of his little lane, it doesn't go down. What I heard from him in that post-match interview, I'm sat there going, you can, and look, he did it very well for England. He would take the attention away from the players and he put it either on himself or he put it on the team they're playing. Eddie Jones, if you're listening, I hope you are, you need to start taking responsibility yourself and look, I know he's not going to sit in a press conference and say we were awful at this, we let he didn't even call it discipline, he referred to it as something else. I'm sorry, mate, discipline let you down in that game. Even the journalist asked him about the discipline, he didn't even call it discipline. His way of protecting his team and himself is to focus on the other team. As rugby tragics, we look at that game and go, there's a lot wrong. And if Australia don't turn, the guy's under pressure already. I'm sorry to say it. He's been in charge of 2 games,
Yeah.
lost heavily, then lost against Argentina. Discipline was poor. Not the Wallabies side that we've always seen. And look, I get it. He's a coach. He's protecting himself and the players. But this time, mate, you can't call out the All Blacks, man. You can't call out the All Black. I was in disbelief, mate. I was eating my dinner at the time when I heard it, and I could have spat my dinner everywhere. And I'm thinking, your players are under pressure already, and now you've just put them under pressure 10 times more.
Much more with the Bledisloe Cup on the line. You know
Oh,
what I kind of equated to, it's almost the same as when a nation does something when the haka is going on. So
yep,
normally guys just stand in a line and when they face the
yep,
haka and they're done with it. France or England have done it where they've done like a triangle where they walk
yep.
towards the haka. It's just like when people do that, I'm like, you're gonna get 50 points put on you now. You're,
Or
you're,
back it
you're
up.
tickling, you're tickling with the Lions balls. You either have
Yeah,
to back that shit up
back it
or
up,
you're gonna
man.
get pumped. So hopefully,
Or back,
maybe Eddie's playing chess and we're playing checkers.
mate. Unless he's keeping something hidden extremely well, the guy's put pressure on himself. But
Yep.
look, to me, he's put a lot of pressure on his players as well. And
Players. Yep.
I'm telling you now, if the All Blacks come out like they did against the Box, against Australia, watch out, Eddie Jones, man. Because I respect Eddie Jones. He did a lot for English rugby. He does a lot for players. Look, Eddie Jones hadn't coached a game, and he was in amongst the NRL talking about what players he's going to steal. Cam
Yep.
Murray from the Rabbitohs and Joseph Suwali from the Roosters. Blah blah blah. He caused us before he'd even really coached a game, and it's just him. He wants what's best for him and the team. But I can't get past the whole comment about the All Blacks. I mean, what are the All Blacks thinking sitting there going, is this guy for real? And like you said, I hope for his sake and Australia and the Wallabies' sake, they back it up. I want to see Australia do well. Don't get me wrong. I want it to be a very competitive competition. But going off what I've just saw, if the All Blacks come out like they did against that Wallaby side, watch out, man.
Yeah,
My
and,
God,
and it
I'm
definitely
in
because
disbelief.
it's a Bledisloe Cup game and it's only one game. It's a one-off,
Yep.
so I'm
Yep.
pretty sure that it's a one-off. So
I hope it's a
Blacks
good
don't
game,
take
mate.
that
I really
lightly,
do.
mate. Yeah, it always is. And All Blacks don't take Bledisloe lightly, man. I don't think Australia have had the Bledisloe for a while, and they're
They
not.
won't take it lightly now either. Like
Uh,
this will just rub salt into that wound, and they will want to come out firing even more against than they will against the Box for sure.
That's where I think it is a higher up at Australian rugby and just be like, mate, just say whatever you want to say.
Stir
We need
stir the pot.
we need media coverage. Yeah,
Yeah,
just need coverage of any kind. I don't care if you don't. And I mean, Matt Giddo, I listened to the Good, the Bad, the Rugby Australia version,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Matt
yeah,
Giddo has just been backing Eddie the whole way. He's obviously been coached by him for a number of years, and he always says he
yeah,
has a bigger plan. So
yeah.
maybe maybe I mean,
I
it,
I'm all
it,
for that. I'm all for that, mate. He said he had a plan for England, and you know what? He's somewhat delivered, but I think there's a time and a place for those comments. Maybe 8-10 weeks out from the competition, you might get away with it. But when you're in the midst of this chaos that the Wallabies are in at the moment, and it's not. I don't enjoy watching the Wallabies play when they're like this because I want to see free flowing rugby. I want to see them at their best. Like
yeah,
when the Wallabies are on, mate. The Wallabies are on. Like the All Blacks South Africa when they used to come to Twickenham, but when the Wallabies came to Twickenham, it had a different feel about it. That the All Blacks brought the haka and that sort of passion. The South Africans brought that real physical game. The Wallabies, it was just like, okay, England, Australia. I don't know if it's like that anymore. And I think if anyone can bring that back, it is Eddie Jones. But I'll refer back to what I just said. I was in absolute disbelief. I mean, how can you call the All Blacks out on that performance, man?
no,
Like we
no,
could talk about it all day.
yeah, exactly. Let's
He's
get to
got
a few
balls.
things. He does have balls. He does have balls.
Yeah.
Give him that. Big balls, Eddie. We'll talk about a few things. Having Quade Cooper as your first receiver after line breaks, or as a general right now,
Mm.
he's so important to this Wallabies team. I think he's the guy that's going to take them forward for this World
Mhm.
Cup. I think there was a line break early on, and then to have him with his let's say old head, but just that experience at 10 to get the ball. So they had a line break, and there wasn't any fluster. He got the ball at first receiver, looked up, saw where the space was, threw it. I think it was a double skip pass,
Yep.
and that Ikitau ended up scoring in the corner. I
Yep.
think having him there is very vital for the Wallabies going forward.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I completely agree. I think the great thing about Quade Cooper is he's so I wouldn't unpredictable is probably the wrong word, but in some ways unpredictable.
Yes, for sure.
That I know what pass you're referring to. I love watching him as a rugby supporter. He somewhat worries me as well. At the same time, I love the guy as a player. I think he's one of the most talented players I've ever seen. Can do things that a lot of players can't. I think that unpredictability, as much as that's vital in the game today, I think Quade Cooper, and I hope it's gone out of his game. So I know back in the day he used to do things, and you're like, wow, what? Like, why? Why did you do that?
Yep,
I
yep.
think he's somewhat been able to sort of pull that in a bit and really control his emotions on the pitch. But he's a free flowing player. That's what makes Quade Cooper so great. I like I like that Noah Lolosio. I think he's a good player. He's only young, just a solid player though. I think a lot of teams, like you said, if the 10's playing well and creating opportunities, the team plays well. And I think Quade Cooper is probably the right choice. I think I would put that Lolosio on the bench just as that backup plan.
He's
But
been left out completely. He's just
mate,
signed
yeah.
a contract in Toulon as a World Cup cover.
Well, yeah, and this is the sort of thing I can't get my head around. Like you bleed these players, and at the start, Lolosio was very sort of hesitant, and you could see that in his game. He built this confidence, and then bang, they're let go. Quade Cooper, again, going back to what I said, is the right choice. I completely agree with you. I just hope against these better teams and in tight games that those flamboyant parts of his game aren't too much and let him down, because I think in those high pressure moments, that's when you need to tuck the ball under your shirt and really get down and dirty with the ball and do those real hard yards. But I completely agree, mate. He's got that excitement factor. The crowd love watching him play. He's got that experience now. I think he'll bring out that Ikitau as well. He's a strong ball carrier. I think Quade Cooper will bring out the best in the players around him, like Richie Mwanga does, like Bowden Barrett does. I think Cooper's an incredible player, and he deserves this opportunity. He's had his ups and downs. I think he deserves this, and I hope for his sake, because I love watching him play, that he can stay on the field and he does what he does best.
Yeah. He's I think he'll be very important for Carter Gordon, who they've got in there.
Yeah.
He's going to be covering, I think it looks like 10 kind of anywhere, because they also went for a 6-2 split. So they only had 2 backline players. So Carter Gordon came on. Ikitau fractured his scapula, so he's out for 6 or 8 weeks. So Karevi played at 12, and then Carter Gordon came on at 13. I mean, he played really well. I was hoping that because he only got like 10 or 15 minutes versus Springboks.
Yeah.
Live wire, came on, scored a try. And I was hoping he'd get more game time this week. And he did, obviously, unfortunately for Ikitau's injury. But he got minutes, and he's so strong, man, on defense.
He's
There's
unreal.
not much of him, but they're so strong on defense. And I think with Quade Cooper's mindset that he has now, I call it kind of genie Quade Cooper. He's barefoot. I feel like he's meditating. He's doing all of that. I think
he's changed.
Yes, he'll be a very good influence on Carter Gordon moving forward.
I think so. I think, regardless of who's in the team, I think Quade Cooper, like I just said, will bring out the best in the players around him. And, someone like Gordon, who's coming up through and he's shown a lot of promise himself. I just feel, I'll refer back to it. I do feel sorry for Lolosio being left out, because I think they blooded him so well and got him to the point where they're like, this guy's performing, and then bang, he's out. And I guess that's rugby, and that's what happens sometimes. It happens a lot in teams. But I think Quade Cooper can be a game changer, and can be he can be that person you need in those pressure moments to win you the game. And I hope, and I think, moving forward the next few games, I think if he shows his true ability, I think that'll do his confidence a world of good as well. And the best is yet to come, I reckon, for Quade Cooper.
What last thing on Quade Cooper, what I did notice was him when kicking to touch. He's very straight on with his kicking. And I've also noticed that, like, for me, that what works is the straight on. And I only put it down to there's less things that can go wrong when you're straight on. Is that kind of the main reason, do you think, for kicking to touch?
I think so, mate. It's really funny you should say this, because again, I was having a conversation last week with a coach, and he's like, our kicking to touch is poor. I look at Quade Cooper when he's kicking to touch, and you're bang on, mate. He's very, very square on when he kicks the ball. I feel coming around the corner a little bit, you do open yourself up a little bit to miss and touch and pulling the ball a little bit. I think being square on and just kicking square on, you're guaranteeing that ball's going to make touch. Wherever you meet, what I do is I normally set a point where I go, okay, I can make that point super easy. I'll pick a point that I reckon is pretty hard to get to, and then I find my happy medium, and that's where I kick to. That's how I used to do it. And I think to achieve the result that you want, which is the ball to go to touch, you're better off being safe and not gaining that extra 10 meters and trying to risk it. And I think, again, it comes down to experience and maturity. I think Quade Cooper has learned these little things to better his game and just be a more all-round solid player. And I think that's probably why, because it's more accurate and you can guarantee 9 times out of 10, if not more, that ball's going to find touch rather than trying to have that hero play of trying to make 60 meters from a penalty. So I think that's probably why he's doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to the South African game, there was Faf de Klerk was kicking again, another inconsistency in guys kicking to touch or taking on the kicking duties. I think it's so important for game. You're kicking to touch, you're kicking to posts. Like we can't be changing the whole time. Anyway, they had an attacking penalty kick to touch, and he fucking kicked it dead. Yeah, and I was like, "Fuck, man! I've done it a million times.
Yeah,
most players have, but in those big games, you only get small opportunities, and you have to take them, man." And I know he was going for as close as you can to that try line so that they could set up that maul.
Yeah,
but fuck, man! There's just like, okay, let's just rein it back. Rather give myself the surety of getting it out.
It goes back to that back yourself mentality as well. Like for me, I'd rather make touch for sure and back my forwards that they can, execute that line out, bring it down, and we can execute our backs move or whatever it may be. Or do I stand there and go, okay, I can be a hero here, put it 2 meters from the try line and potentially miss touch. I remember watching Henry Slade in the Premiership Cup final at Twickenham for Exeter against Wasps, I think. I might be wrong. Mate, he was on the halfway line, right in the center of the halfway line. He kicked it and he literally landed it 5 meters out. And they won the Premiership kind of Cup final from that. And I'm thinking, this is last play of the game, Premiership Cup final, 80,000 people, and if you've got the self-confidence to do it, by all means do it. But for me, if I was in that position, let's find touch. I don't care. Let's find touch, get the ball out. But there's a real fine line between messing it up and you're doing that on that international stage. You're expected to find touch. And I mean, I wouldn't like to have heard the forwards, what they had to say to him, because that's not good.
Yeah, no.
They'd be raging for sure.
Because I've had, obviously playing with the uni Seahorses this year, there's a lot of young fellas. And now when I wasn't playing for a while, being injured, there's a few other boys taking over the kicking duties, whether that be kicking to touch or kicking to posts. And there was times, I think it was in one game, one of the boys missed touch. Also a heap of times, not just once or twice. And I was the previous game also had done that. And I remember speaking to them after, it's like, sometimes there's just going to be a shit day where it's just not going to be working for you. Other times you have to realize that it's, okay, I'm going to shit here. Let's take off those meters. Let's just make sure this goes out. Don't 100%. Think about anything else. Just bring everything back to basics. I don't want an extra 20 meters. Let me just kick it out. You kick it out. And
people are going to remember you. If you miss it, people are going to remember that. You set a target in your mind and you're 10 meters short of that. No one's going to comment on that because that's in your own head. But they're going to remember the kick that you miss.
Missed that. Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Marky Mark. I don't even want to.
I'm not even going to attempt his name, mate.
Surname. They all just kept calling him.
You can have a go.
Mark, so I'm going to say Marky Mark. No, it starts with an N. Nagawatsi.
No, it looks Fijian to me. He must be part Fijian.
I'm not too sure. Killed it. Absolutely killed it. I wasn't too sure of him because he loves like you said about Quade Cooper, he loves a out of the ordinary play, whether that's a triple skip pass behind the back or just throwing the ball. He's so energetic, so lively, so strong as well, so fast. But it would always, especially for the Waratahs, would make a break and then just throw the ball away or try and do that last thing too much. Where at test level, you can't do that. And he didn't do that on the weekend. On the weekend, he made the breaks. He either went to ground or played the safe short ball or just pass. And that's that extra thing I think he needed or was probably told maybe by Eddie Jones.
Yeah.
This is all you have to do. And
I was just about to say that that could be the Eddie Jones factor. I'm going to give you the shot because you're super talented. But this part of your game needs to come out. Like you're playing international rugby now. If you do this international rugby, you're not going to last. The guy brings the stadium to its feet. You know what I mean? Like kids love him. He's one of those players. You get the ball in his hands and you hear the crowd just erupt. And it's, he's talented. Again, like Quade Cooper, I hope he can sort of keep his feet on the ground and those erratic sort of rugby behaviors don't overwhelm him and he can hold it together. But the thing is with these players like Quade Cooper and himself, like you don't want them to change too much. That's why we love them so much. But at the same time, I guess it's that whole temperament of being able to control what you're doing. And, you do one flick pass in their game. I know full well, like you do one flick pass at the start, you think you're a world beater for the rest of the game. And I think for players with that sort of mentality, it's really easy to get lost and do things that you probably wouldn't necessarily do. So I think he needs to stay there. I think he needs to keep doing what he's doing, and I think he'll have he'll have a long career there for sure. I think he's super exciting.
Absolutely. I think that's pretty much it. I did want to touch on my man of the match for that game.
Yeah.
And it's the Aussie commentators. They're so fucking biased. I can't stand them.
Oh my God, yeah.
I can't stand them. Bring back Clarkey. I need Clarkey in my life. The Aussie commentators from Super 12 days. Bring them back. I can't.
I know, mate. I feel your pain. Look, as an Englishman living in Australia, it doesn't matter if it's cricket, rugby. It's got guys. If you're listening to this, it's no reflection on you guys as Aussies. I don't know what these media people are told prior to going into a game, but if it's cricket, you could bowl and knock the middle stump out the ground. It's not out. It's the Wallabies. It's nothing's ever goes their way. Clap scrum. It's always the other team.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, mate. And I you know what? I'm guarantee the players would watch the game back and go, far out, man. Yeah. Can you just It wouldn't just be us as non-Wallaby supporters. Like it's a thing, but it's frustrating to watch, mate.
Yeah. I almost want to hit mute sometimes, man. Like I love some of the insight. Like Drew Mitchell's great. Some of his insight.
Yeah.
Fuck, some of the other guys are fucking torture, man. And I know the guys are trying their best, but shit,
mate, it is extremely painful. Just before we finish this up, I just want to give a shout. And I didn't think I'd ever say this, but Michael Cheika, I've got to give a big shout out to him. I think personally, that rivalry, obviously he was the Wallabies coach for a long time. I think his game plan against the Wallabies, again, from the Wallabies, what are you going to expect? Michael Cheika was our coach. He knows what we're good at, what we're bad at, what's going to, really tick us off. And Argentina done it and Australia fell for it. And again, Michael Cheika can only control so much, but the players have got to go out and perform. But that whole discipline side, I think Michael Cheika had a lot to do with how they played that game. Obviously, I'm not stating the obvious here, but in terms of like getting under their skin, getting niggly. And I think, like I said, that won them the game. The whole discipline side of it, I think personally won them the game. They deserved it. But I'm not a huge fan of Michael Cheika. I've got to be careful with my words, but I'm not a huge fan of him. Great coach, obviously. And I think that rivalry between him and Eddie Jones, I think he nailed it, mate. I really do.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Michael Cheika, man.
Shout out Michael Cheika, a big fan of the show, of course. But also, mate, I think that wraps it up for this week.
Amazing.
Good. Is anything else from your side?
I don't think so, man. I'm just looking forward to the next time we do this, and it's good to review these games. Like, and not only if anyone's watching, me and Dane don't really discuss what we're gonna talk about. We got the topics, but like it's good to bounce off each other and get different opinions, because I can sit here and go, oh, this is great, or that's great, and then you come in and say, well, did you see that? Did you see that? And it's sort of like just makes you realize you can see it two different ways from two different people. So looking forward, mate, I think, these games are going to be really interesting going off the results that have happened. Again, I'm looking forward to the Wallabies and see how they respond. And even Argentina, can they back it up? And South Africa are going to be not happy about what happened. And the All Blacks need to keep going. So every team right now have got their reason to be better or consistent now. It's not like, just lost because of that or this. You've got a reason and keep going. And it's exciting, man. I can't wait.
And then it's 2 months and it's the World Cup, man. So we've got lots of rugby to do. So there's a bye this week. So next week we might wait until a couple of teams get announced, and then we'll do kind of a preview going into the following week.
Yep.
But yeah, cool. Thanks.
Amazing.
Thanks, Mike. And
appreciate it, mate.
We will see you guys next time.